This all started a couple of months ago when I went to visit my grandmother in her village for the first time in years. I wasn't excited about it at first. I'm more of a city person, loving coffee shops, Netflix, and the busy life. But Grandma had been asking me to come for a long time and my mom was pushing me, so I finally agreed. Now, the village my grandmother lives in isn't like the pretty places you see in movies. It's quiet, far away from everything, and surrounded by fields and forests. When I arrived, I was surprised by how peaceful it was. There was no noise, no distractions, just nature. Perfect for some quiet time, right? Well, I couldn't have been more wrong. The first night, things started feeling strange. I had just finished eating a huge meal Grandma made for me. She's one of those grandmothers who thinks you can't be full unless you've eaten every single bite. And I decided to sit outside for a little while. The air was cool and the moon was bright, so I thought I'd enjoy the evening. Grandma had already gone to bed, and the house was completely quiet. There's a little courtyard outside her house surrounded by a stone wall, so it felt pretty private. I was just relaxing there, minding my own business, when I saw it. A shadow. It was odd because there was nobody out there. The shadow looked like it was moving across the ground, but it wasn't connected to anything. It didn't look like the shadows cast by trees or lights. This shadow seemed solid, like it had its own shape. It moved in a way that didn't make sense. At first, I thought maybe it was a stray dog or something, but there was no sound, no rustling in the bushes, nothing. I got up and called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" But there was no answer. And honestly, the way the shadow moved, smooth and slow, it made me feel uneasy. I didn't want to freak out, so I told myself it was probably just my imagination. Maybe it was just the moonlight playing tricks on me, right? I'm sure we've all had moments when the dark seems alive, but that night I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The next morning I casually mentioned it to Grandma, just to see what she thought about what I had seen. I expected her to say it was nothing or that I was overreacting. But no, she just laughed and said, "Oh, you saw one of the spirits. Don't worry, they won't hurt you if you leave them alone." Spirits? I tried to act calm, but I'll be honest, I was a bit scared. Spirits? I've heard stories about spirits in the village. Who hasn't? But I never thought I'd actually see one. That night, I made sure to lock every door and window before going to bed. I wasn't going to take any chances with spirits wandering into my room. You know that feeling, right? You lock everything up, but still feel like someone's behind you. That night felt like that, only worse. Around midnight, I woke up to a faint whispering sound. It was so quiet at first, I thought it might be the wind, or maybe my grandmother talking in her sleep. But then it got louder. I couldn't tell where it was coming from, and that's when I realized it wasn't just random noise. Someone or something was whispering my name. Oh, I lay there frozen in my bed, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But the whispering continued. My name over and over in a low, raspy voice. I got up and tiptoed over to the window, cautiously peeking outside. That's when I saw them, the shadows. At first, I thought I was imagining it again, but no, there were three of them. Three solid, dark shapes standing in a perfect circle in the middle of the courtyard. They weren't cast by any lights or the moon. They were just there. And what's worse, they weren't moving. They just stood there, facing different directions, like they were waiting for something or someone. And I swear one of them turned its head toward me. I can't explain it, but I felt like it saw me, even without a face. I backed away from the window, my heart racing. I was sweating, shaking, but I couldn't look away. I don't know how long I stood there staring at them, but at some point they just disappeared. Just like that, gone. I barely slept the rest of the night. I stayed awake, listening for any noise or movement, but nothing happened. The silence was loud. The next morning, I told my grandmother about what I saw. She didn't seem too worried at first, but when I mentioned the whispering, her expression changed. "You need to leave before nightfall," she said seriously. "You've seen the ads." I had no idea what that was, so I asked her to explain. She looked at me like I was a child and said, "The ads are not spirits. They're something much worse. They are beings that take the form of shadows, and they hunt." At this point, I felt like I had stepped into a horror movie. "Hunt?" I asked. "Yes. They don't hurt you unless they feel threatened or disturbed," she continued. "And once they've noticed you, they follow you. They won't leave you alone." I felt chills run down my spine. "What do I do?" Grandma was quiet for a moment, then she sighed. "You leave. Go back to the city. The ads don't like outsiders, and they definitely don't like being seen. If they know you saw them, you won't be safe here." Now, I'm not the superstitious type, but after everything that happened, I wasn't about to argue. I packed my bags and left that same day. I've been back in the city for a while now, but every now and then, I catch a glimpse of a shadow in my peripheral vision. It's quick, like a flicker in the corner of my eye, but I swear I can feel it watching me. I'm trying not to freak out, but the truth is, I don't think I'll ever forget what I saw in that village. There's something out there in the shadows, something I can't explain. And even now, I can't shake the feeling that it's still following me. The experience stuck with me, like gum on my shoe, refusing to be forgotten. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew better. There was a part of me still connected to that village, to those shadows, and to the strange whispers in the night. In the city, life went on. I was busy with the usual noise of traffic, work, and social life. Yet even with all this chaos, I missed the calm of my grandmother's village. It was odd, missing a place that had scared me so much, but maybe it was the simple beauty of nature that I longed for. One evening, as the sun set and the city lights began to glow, I found myself drawn to a small park near my apartment. It was one of those rare green spots in the concrete city, a place where you could breathe. I sat on a bench, watching as day turned to night, and the shadows began to stretch and move under the lights. That's when I saw it again, a shadow. It lingered at the edge of the park, a dark shape against the light. My heart raced, a mix of fear and curiosity pulling me closer. I stood up, hesitated, then took a cautious step forward. The shadow seemed to shift, almost like it was inviting me in. "You can't be real," I whispered to myself, my voice barely heard over the rustling leaves. But in that moment, I felt the weight of both fear and reality pressing down on me. Suddenly a voice, soft and familiar, spoke from the darkness. "Why did you leave?" it asked, echoing my own feelings. The voice wasn't scary or comforting. It was just there, as unavoidable as the shadow itself. "I had no choice," I replied, more to myself than to the shadow, but deep down I knew it was a lie. I had left out of fear, trying to find some normal life again. Yet here I was facing the very thing I had tried to run away from. As if it understood my thoughts, the shadow began to fade, blending into the night until it was just part of the darkness. I stood there unsure of what had just happened. Was it a warning? A sign? Or was it just my imagination playing tricks on me again? In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the shadow was still out there, hiding just out of view. It was a reminder that some mysteries are never meant to be solved, and some stories never truly end. And so, I started to accept the shadows, not as things to fear, but as keepers of secrets. In their darkness, I found a kind of peace, a feeling that life is full of unknowns we may never fully understand. Yet in those shadows, I also found strength, a reminder that fear, like shadows, can only exist where there is also light. So if you ever find yourself in a quiet village in Africa, and you catch sight of something moving in the dark, something that doesn't seem to fit, don't ignore it. Trust me, it's better to leave before it notices you. Why not share your own creepy stories in the comments below? I'd love to know if anyone else has seen something they can't explain. Maybe you've got your own shadow story. If this story gave you chills, hit that subscribe button. I've got more stories that'll keep you up at night. Trust me, the Adze shadows aren't the only weird things I've seen. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss my next story. Sometimes I think the shadows want me to share these stories, Maybe they're watching you read this right now. Stay safe out there.